Welcome to Child Welfare and Foster Care Committee, Wednesday, March 20th. I'm going to start the meeting today with a point of personal privilege and introduce my family, part of my family. So you guys stand up. This is my daughter, Kelsey, and my twin grandsons were here and paged yesterday, my son-in-law, Larry, and then Bo is the little politician over there. And that's Kingston raising his hand. Yeah. So they just wanted to pop in and see their Nina at work today. So, yeah. So as another point of personal privilege, I will call on Cindy, on Representative Howerton. I'm sorry.
You're good. Thank you, Chair Kincannon. I have with me today Ben, Alyssa, Sauceda, and Riker. So they are foster parents that have recently adopted. If you guys want to stand, and if the chair would allow, they could talk just a couple minutes about their experience, if you would allow that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in knowing your timeline, especially.
Yes.
He just did.
There we go. Well, thank you very much, representatives, for allowing us to speak and to be here. My name is Ben. This is my wife, Alyssa, and this is Riker. We were foster parents for 2.5 years with him, and then finalized the adoption February 2nd of this year. And so we are excited about that. Our process to get licensed was actually probably the easiest. We went through DECA in Sedgwick County, and they helped us get through the process very quickly, thoroughly. And so we began our classes in May and became certified by September. And 4 days later, we had him. And so we had him for 2.5 years. The first year, a little over a year, was back and forth with court issues. Wasn't related to the system necessarily as much as it was just to getting to the termination of parental rights there, which was just a struggle. And there were outside instances that were taking place that kind of caused some of that to delay. From that point, though, that's kind of when things hit a little harder, rougher patch there. The parental rights were terminated in January of 23, and by August of 23, they had made no progress on the actual adoption piece and permanency beyond that. And they had gone through several different caseworkers. And the problem was low staffing issues, shortages, and things like that. The problem was we just weren't ever communicated with. So we didn't know sometimes that our staff person had been replaced through the placing agency at that time. So it took a little bit of time, and then DCF happened to mistake my fingerprints and listed them as female, and so that slowed down the process, and had to go through a re-fingerprinting process and everything like that. So it was a little bit of a haul to get to that, but once we got to the last about two months, Secretary Howard was very helpful in getting that mistake corrected quickly, and we were able to move along at that point quite well. The only thing that we're waiting on at this point is we're still waiting on the vital statistics to provide a birth certificate. And so that's been about 6 weeks now since we finalized the adoption, so hopefully here soon.
Well, congratulations, and thank you for coming in and meeting the committee.
Yes, and if I could, we were actually very privileged and honored to have Representative Humphreys as our attorney that handled the adoption for us. So, yes, so thank you.
Okay, we'll get into our business of the meeting. We have minutes from March 6th, March 11th, March 13th. Are these on the S drive now? They're ready to be approved. Okay. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move minutes as listed.
Okay. Motion by Representative Johnson and second by Representative Pickert to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no? Yeah. Okay. Okay, we're gonna start with our presentation by Gail Kozad with Kansas Children's Service League. Welcome. We squeezed you in our very last committee meeting.
No. Wait. Okay. Are we good? All right. So I'm just going to say before we get started, and I think somebody's going to have slides up for you to be able to see as well. You should have gotten the packet too. This is something that I usually do in 45 minutes to an hour. So we're going to get this into about 10 minutes. So please know that I'm going to read through my script more than I normally do. I'm usually very off the cuff, but I wanted to be considerate of your time. So thank you so much, Chair Kincannon, for inviting me today. I am the CEO for Kansas Children's Service League. We are a statewide nonprofit agency serving children and their families. We are the Kansas chapter for Prevent Child Abuse America and serve as the Kansas chapter for Kansas Family Support Network. As the chapter for PCAA, our charge is to prevent child abuse. We know the best way to prevent child abuse is to teach and support parents right from the start of their parenting career. We achieve this through a wide array of services and support, all focused on improving health outcomes from positive experiences in a child and a parent's life and increasing their protective factors. Our annual budget for 2023 was $19 million, with approximately 60% of the funding from a variety of state departments, including the Department for Children and Families, the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, the Department of Health and Environment, and the Department of Corrections. We work to create, repair, and restore healthy parent-child relationships, which are the foundation of a strong family. This work fosters long-term positive impacts on all Kansans, not just those we serve directly. We believe every child is filled with remarkable promise. We also believe collectively we have a shared obligation to foster their potential. And the key to ensuring this potential begins with a healthy, nurturing, responsive relationship with their parents. What we know is that 57.5% of Kansans have reported experiencing adversity as a child. We know this information through an anonymous public health survey completed through KDHE. I know earlier this session you had a presentation about adverse childhood experiences, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail over that, but as a quick reminder, it includes abuse and neglect as well as other household dysfunctions or circumstances that affect children adversely, including substance abuse, mental illness of a parent, domestic violence, and criminal behavior, all of which place a child at higher risk of entering the foster care system. The childhood trauma stemming from adversity can have a profound impact on social connections, school readiness, and an increased likelihood of developing negative coping mechanisms which have an impact on our larger society in terms of health-related costs, special education costs, worker productivity costs, and criminal justice costs as these children become adults. The reality is in the numbers, childhood adversity happens. The question is how we mitigate the risks of adversity. Our work with children and families improves school readiness now so that graduation rates improve in the future. With quality early childhood development, children will start school ready to learn. When children are prepared to learn, they are likely to read on grade level. And if they're reading on grade level, they're more likely to graduate. Why do I talk about education? Because it is so critical to help improve that generational cycle and break that generational cycle, whether that's poverty or instances of abuse or neglect. We help families succeed now to be better parents and better employees. The skills they learn to communicate, self-regulate their emotions are skills that they can carry into their workplace. As a result, we are creating a stronger and more resilient workforce for the future of Kansas. There are 3 types of prevention which I want to share with you today. First is primary prevention. This is intervening before adverse childhood experiences occur. One of the first steps in accomplishing this is making educational opportunities available to everyone or anyone. KCSL provides training and education opportunities for child care providers, child welfare providers, and parents. In 2023, we provided training to over 10,000 participants. We know the prevention of child abuse is done in partnership. We cannot do this alone without other people that are involved in a child's lives. We have also been working with businesses to discuss the importance of family-friendly workplaces and the policies that they have that can support parents as a result, which actually has an impact on preventing adverse experiences for children. We ensure families have a safe place to gain access to resources. We know that that is critical as well. So through a partnership with the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, we have expanded access to the Parent Helpline, also known as 1-800-CHILDREN. And again, this is a type of primary prevention. The resources for anyone and everyone. It's designed to be in a parent's corner and help parents navigate the resources in the community, which will be most beneficial for their family. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year. We also have a mobile phone app and a website that anyone can search to find resources by their zip code. And in 2023, we had over 100,000 unique users to our website. Thank you. We think that's pretty important too. We also serve in the role as a state chapter for the National Family Support Network. In this role, we have the opportunity to support family resource centers in Kansas by providing training, technical assistance, and access to peers across the country doing this work. FRCs are designed to be readily accessible in local neighborhoods, schools, and communities to serve as a hub of support, information, and resources for families. I think it's really critical to note that in states that have implemented family resource centers, they have seen a 63% reduction in child abuse cases and a 50% reduction in out-of-home placements. More importantly, they have seen gains in economic self-sufficiency, health, social support, and family functioning. Currently, we are supporting 14 family resource centers in Kansas, 10 of which are funded currently through the state, through the Department of Children and Families, but we are also working to expand that network into smaller communities with smaller organizations. Secondary prevention involves screening for a risk and intervening at the earliest possible point. Risks might include financial burdens, single parenthood, struggles with behavioral health for one of the parents. Examples of secondary prevention include home visitation, Head Start, and early Head Start. Through secondary prevention efforts at KCSL, we served over 2,500 children across the state in 2023, with 95% of those children remaining safely at home, and over 90% of those children were between the ages of 0 to 5. I think it's important to note that prevention really does start at a young age, and so when you're thinking about well-being of a child, you really have to think about what happens in those first 5 years as well. KCSL becomes a support system for parents and their children when they have nowhere else to turn, and so we provide those evidence-based programs for them. Finally, there's tertiary prevention, which occurs after child or family has come to the attention of the system. So that might be the foster care system, it might be law enforcement, it might be juvenile justice, but the whole goal is to prevent them from going further into whatever system that might be. In the case of child welfare, obviously, you don't want them to go into foster care. So those examples are include programs funded under Families First and Family Preservation. And in 2023, KCSL also served about 1,000 children in this area of prevention who had contact with the system. And of those, 76% of the children served improved their functioning while in the program. So let's talk about healthy outcomes from positive experiences, which is really how we achieve child abuse prevention. We do that by building resiliency and mitigating adversity when it does occur. We know from recent research that children and adults who have experienced adversity have great capacity to also build resiliency. Teaching parents and children the skills they need to build their resilience helps provide a roadmap to adapt to life-changing situations in the future. Resiliency is defined as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity. Having resiliency doesn't mean children and their parents will not experience difficulty or distress, but it ensures that they have the behaviors, the thoughts, and the actions that everyone can learn and develop in order to get through those difficult times. In the last 10 years, there has been an effort to tie positive childhood experiences to increased resiliency or healthy outcomes. So this is a newer area of research, unlike adverse childhood experiences, which have been researched for now about over 30 years. This is kind of a newer area where we're looking at how can we increase positive experiences and positive health outcomes. So one area that they've looked at in particular is these 7 questions. So I'm not going to read them all to you, but they are considered key indicators for resiliency as an adult. And if you have the opportunity to read them yourselves, think about your own experience and how many of these experiences, how many of them did you have? I personally note for myself that I had the opportunity for all 7 of these experiences in my life. And it should be noted that the research does not look at frequency of these experiences, but just as an adult says, yes, that these are experiences that I did have as a child. The study specifically looked at the impact these experiences had on mental health of adults. So adults were asked to review the questions and score themselves, and they also provided information about their current mental health status. And as you can see, the more positive experiences during childhood, the more likely the adult was to report being in good mental health. And they identified good mental health as not having indications of depression, suicide, those kinds of things. So how do we build those positive childhood experiences? There's been some recent research on this, and I see you all chuckling. I think that there's children behind me. No, it's fantastic. This is great. I love that I have an extra entertainment going on behind me because I'm talking really fast. So thank you for my entertainment back here. No, do not apologize. This is why we are here. This is talking about those positive experiences. So I'm so glad that they're here today. So we know that there's 4 building blocks of positive childhood experiences. And these are not building blocks that you start with one and then you have to have the other and the other. They are overlapping. They need to happen at the same time. And the more of them that you have for a child, the more often they have opportunities for these, the better off they're going to be. So just a quick note on each one of them. So the first one is relationships. And what I want to say is that neuroscience has proven our brains are not wired for isolation. We have to have relationships. We crave those connections. We crave those relationships. And whenever we talk about adverse childhood experiences, it is equally important that we are talking about relational wealth. Being connected in a healthy way to a social network, providing children and their parents stable, responsive, nurturing relationships can prevent or even, and this is the key, even reverse the damaging effects of early life stress with lifelong benefits for learning, behavior, and health. Positive experiences can buffer those bad experiences. Just one positive, stable relationship can balance the negative outcomes and build resilience. I always ask people to think about who was the teacher in their life, who was the godparent or next door neighbor or coach that they can remember to this day as a grown adult that just sticks out in their brain. So there's the research that says it just takes one. Now, the more that we can surround children with those positive adults in their lives, the better they're going to be. The second one is safe, equitable, stable environments. This includes ensuring a child has their basic needs met, access to food, shelter, health care. It also includes access to a stable school environment where a child feels valued. And then children need access to a broader community of people who are safe and nurturing. And this may be through their church, it may be through their child care center, it may be through the neighborhood that they live in. The third one is social engagement. And this is when a child has the opportunity to create a sense of belonging and connection to their larger community. This is when a child is involved in projects, peer mentoring, community service through school, or their religious organization. It's an opportunity for children to take part in family traditions, and it's when children are able to participate in organized activities. The fourth building block is opportunities for emotional growth. These allow children to develop their sense of self-awareness. They're opportunities for children to learn how to self-regulate their emotions, and where they learn how to problem solve, those critical thinking opportunities. These skills most occur often naturally through play. I just want to reiterate, these are not things that you necessarily have to teach. Our brains are wired to learn these things if we allow the opportunities for children to experience them. I will say, though, there are always times when children need the additional help in order to learn those skills. Teaching a child how to self-regulate begins in infancy. And so when we talk about these things, these are not things that start in kindergarten or at the age of 8 or 10. They really start in infancy. And self-regulation for an infant looks like that eye contact. It is rocking and soothing. Self-regulation comes through play, through movement, through music. So any of those things that a parent is doing with a child, or for that matter, any caregiver that's doing with a child, helps promote self-regulation. And as I said, these truly are building blocks, but you can't have, they don't build upon each other. You just have to have all of them or a majority of them in order to be successful as adults. And what I want to note on this is that many of these building blocks cross or intersect with many state departments, many House and Senate committees, and many social service agencies. My point is, when you look at the true prevention of child abuse and think about child well-being, it is all connected and interconnected. So at the end of the day, connections matter. Yes. Relationships are at the heart of the 4 building blocks because they offer opportunities to find connections with other adults and with peers. We know that relationships build brain capacity for thinking and learning and help children realize their full potential. Go ahead and go. Yeah. We are successful because we utilize programs which have been researched and proven to be effective for children and families. We ensure a whole family approach. I think that's critical. A child cannot be successful if their parent is still struggling and still in a world of trauma and hurt. So we focus on the health, safety, and education of the child and their parents. We build positive, stable, nurturing relationships with the parents as they're raising their children. And these skills help ensure the success of the children as they continue to grow, but also their parents. It gives them the skills to be successful in school and at work. And with parents, we ensure they also have a healthy support system of peers they can turn to during future times of stress. Because we recognize we cannot be involved in their lives forever. We are not their family. And our goal is to ensure that they all have the tools they need to be successful when a future crisis arises. We believe we will see changes in the future. This work can truly foster long-term success. I have seen it individually with families in my 17 years at KCSL. Families have stayed connected, and children we have served years ago have broken those generational cycles. They are thriving. We just want to be able to do more. I want to thank you for your time today, and I think I got done in less than 10 minutes. Woohoo! But I will stand for any questions that you might have, and this is your opportunity to grill me.
Part of it did. We still have one piece. Committee, do we have questions? Yes, Representative Pickert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know she's really dreading this. Well, I've known of KCSL since my daughter graduated from college because that was her first job in Wichita for, I think, 7 years, and now she's back with KCSL here in Topeka, but she works with that 1-800 number that Gail was talking about. KCSL is a great place. And if you haven't had a chance to tour a KCSL facility, they're all over this state. I'd really encourage you to do that because it's pretty cool what they're doing. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, they're going to let you off the hook.
I know they're going to let me off the hook. I will, and I just want final parting comments is we are not the end all be all to child abuse prevention, KCSL, but I think that we do have the knowledge and the skills to help others move forward in this work. And I'll let DCF at some time, I know you've heard from them, but I think we're moving in the right direction. As you all know, we've seen decreases in children in foster care, and I think that's the work that we are doing to focus on preventing child abuse and keeping families together. And I think we can do it safely.
Well, thanks for coming in, and thank you for all you do.
Oh,
Really,
of course.
state appreciates it. I forgot one announcement. I want to welcome Representative Woodard to committee today. Hi. I don't know why, I just forgot that you were a new face in here. Okay. We are going to work House Bill 2189, and it has been, maybe we need a moment for transition. Oh, Gail.
I forgot one last plug. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and I have pinwheels, which are the national symbol for the prevention of child abuse. So I'm going to pass those around, and you all can hopefully take one and support us in the month of April.
Thank you. Were there enough of these over there? Jesse, could you update us on the bill? We did have a hearing recently, but I would appreciate a reminder.
Only if I get a pinwheel.
I'll make sure.
Okay, thank you. So House Bill 2189 amends two different statutes. So the first section, the first statute it amends is going to be KSA 382202, which is the definitions for the Child in Need of Care Code. So what that does is it proposes a new definition for a non-minor dependent, who would be a person at least 18 years of age but less than 21 years of age, who, other than the age, meets the definition of a child in need of care under that subsection D of that same statute. And that statute, has 14 different factors that go into the consideration of a child and whether they are in need of care. So the second section amends KSA 382203, and this is the statute that authorizes the court's jurisdiction over a child in need of care. So in subsection, most of the action of this bill, if you have the bill in front of you, occurs on page 7. So in subsection C3, a court will not terminate jurisdiction before June 1 of the year of a child who turns 18 while they're in school, while in an out-of-home placement. So this is already law. As you can see at the bottom of the page, the struck language is the language I'm alluding to. So we struck the language in lines 40 through 43 and just moved it up. So that part is already current law. What the bill proposes is adding that the court shall not terminate jurisdiction for a child who is for a non-minor dependent who is in out-of-home placement and is transitioning to adulthood. So if the child has done this written request to the court to not terminate jurisdiction and they are non-minor dependent in this situation, there are additional requirements of that non-minor dependent. And those requirements are that they participate in case planning, attend school or work, and receive independent living services. And then it also states that if the non-minor dependent fails to comply with some of these requirements, the secretary may petition to terminate jurisdiction, the court's jurisdiction. Additionally, a court shall no longer have jurisdiction over a non-minor dependent who has been absent from a placement longer than 30 days or once that non-minor dependent turns 21.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Are there any questions for Jesse? So, Jesse, it's my understanding that what this bill provides is the extension, but not actually a reentry process.
Correct. The child needs to already be under the custody in order to do the written request to remain under jurisdiction of the court.
Okay. So at this time, I'll open the bill up for discussion, and if anyone has an amendment, and I have an amendment. I got set one out for each of them. So while she's passing that out, I will just kind of summarize. What this does is it takes the court system out of the process, and they can continue or re-enter by writing a letter to DCF. They would still qualify then for services under DCF, but it wouldn't require a court order for them to re-enter. Am I saying that right, Jesse?
Yes, this new section would provide provisions that the child or the non-minor dependent may re-enter care upon these steps that relate only to an interaction with the secretary.
But it does allow for re-entry. If at 18, let's see. Oh, there it is, was previously in custody of the secretary and in an out-of-home placement. Oh, no, that's not it. It doesn't have that. Okay. Okay, it allows reentry services then. Okay, are there questions on the amendment? Representative Pickert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So then how long can they remain getting services? Does it, sorry. So I know that there's federal dollars for youth who have been in foster care to go to college, and I think that goes to 25 or something like that. I know that if they really are after it, they can get their graduate degree. So does that, is there an end age with this bill?
Yeah, this bill for these services are 21, but there are allowances for some of those aging out. You know, that we talked about those in the Soul bill. Some of the aging out services that they would still qualify for. Representative Humphreys.
Thank you. I think for the revisor, so this new section 1, but then the rest of the bill is still in there. So what we changed on page 7, that, so the reentry services, but they still could be retained under the jurisdiction of the court if they requested in writing to the court. Right, so that section's still in here. This is just a little bit adding a different thing. Is that correct?
This amendment does not change the underlying bill.
Okay.
Other than the addition of the new section.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to assume I know this, so can someone define reentry, what exactly that's talking about? I think I know, but I don't want to assume.
Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And along those lines, maybe an example of how this changes the process currently allowed.
Jesse, did you have a response? No.
My response would be that this bill does not contain any definition for reentry or reentry services.
Madam Chair, I think I answered my own question. How this differs from the process, there is no reentry currently today, but maybe just for the committee and for discussion's sakes. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, on follow, I'm just trying to grasp, so is it reentry services, that letter versus the court overseeing them? Is that what we're talking about? Like they're getting services, but no supervision versus court is providing supervision? Is that, I'm
Jesse?
sorry, I'm really trying.
Yeah, so this section does not propose any sort of process for a child who is formally in custody of the secretary to go through that court process again and be redetermined as in custody of the secretary. This instead proposes that child who is out of custody to decide that they want to receive some services from the secretary and enters into those agreements and request with the secretary on some services that they could receive as an older child who is no longer in custody. That helps.
So, and then the court, where they write the letter to the court, they're actually still in custody?
Correct.
And then my last question, if I may, just because this is similar to the Soul bill, so just can you contrast that for me? What this bill does versus the Soul? That's a placement of the court.
Correct, yes. So that
This
child
is the child
in custody.
requesting that they either remain in custody or they want services.
Yeah, this is not a permanency option. Representative Wagoner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, I'm just, so again, just trying to mentally, so the child is not going, or the young adult is, in this case, is not going back to be living with some sort of foster parent. They're living on their own, I take it. And so the services, I mean, I know like when a kid, like when a foster parent has a child, the foster parents get X amount of dollars per month, to provide for the child as far as food and clothing and all that. So would this independent child get that money, or is it just that they get free counseling and free, some sort of free medical thing or something? I'm kind of, what are the services exactly entailed with this? I mean, yeah, I don't know
Jesse?
if Jesse or whoever.
Sure, yeah. I'll just repeat that this doesn't have a definition for re-entry services or list the type of services that may be received. So that would be up to DCF on which of their funding may apply or what services they would want to provide to children in this case.
So if I may ask, that how did, I know there was a financial fiscal note, so how did they figure the fiscal note? They must have had some sense as to what they were going to spend.
The fiscal note, I kind of followed up on that. The fiscal note assumes that 10% of the kids that age out are going to request to continue receiving services. And I think 10% is probably a pretty high number to be gauging this on. But the fiscal note, if you'll recall, is about $7 million.
I may have further questions, but I'm trying to run some math here right now.
Did you have a comment on that, Representative Humphreys?
Just a clarification, if that fiscal note was the underlying bill and the amendment, or if the amendment itself also had a fiscal note?
No, the amendment does not have.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Howell.
Thank you, Chair. Try again. So just kind of processing this a little bit out loud. So on page 7, basically, we have a child who realizes they're not going to be ready to be on their own and independent. So they're going to basically request the court recognize that and allow them to continue in the situation that they're in and continue with benefits, much like a child who doesn't move out of our home. Okay. Okay. For those of us with children. Okay. And as soon as they turn 18, they think, oh, this nest feels pretty good. We're going to stay here. Okay. All right. But they're still doing the right things, like going to work and school and all those kinds of things, which is great. Okay. And then the other, your amendment basically that you're presenting here is basically saying for a child who thought they were ready to be independent and exited out and then realized, oh, maybe I'm not ready, then this is a way for them to come back into the system as an adult.
Well, that's the way I understood it, but then we've had some discussion here that I'm not so sure. Do you have anything? I might call on Rachel. Okay, Rachel, could you help us understand this bill? We've had a hearing last year and a hearing this year, and it's still not clear.
And much of the conversation about this bill has happened behind the scenes, and so I happen to have been trying to understand the original intent of the bill, the fiscal note, and what was contemplated. And so if you'll allow me to try to kind of walk backwards.
And she's been trying to explain it to me.
First of all, I'm going to give you the long story because I don't know how to make it short on the spur of the moment. This bill came out of a previously filed bill. That previously filed bill 2 years ago, another biennium ago, actually had language that we would put the child back under the custody of a court. But it's now an adult child, and adult children wouldn't want to do that, practically speaking. I wouldn't want to volunteer to go have a court tell me what to do when I was over 18. So what was contemplated then in the second version of the bill and intended to be in the version of the bill was that there would be the first part, which is the current bill, that the judge would not be able to remove you from custody if you're doing what you need to do after age of 18 until you're 21. The second part was intended but didn't make it in the language of the bill, and that was a reentry provision that would allow DCF to help you, like a parent whose child hasn't moved out, but not tell you exactly what to do. If you're cooperating, you can have certain enhanced supports over and above what we offer independent living youth today. And of course, my phone just died, and that's where my notes are. That might include weekly or more regular contact with an independent living coordinator who works at DCF than is the current standard. Might be monthly. They might have a weekly standard. DCF could work to make sure that if you had special needs for housing, that we could arrange for service providers to make sure you have access to housing, or partner with landlords to make sure that there is available housing for you, instead of you have a subsidy but you can't afford to get anywhere and you don't have a cosigner to help you meet the rent demands. The requirements might be budgeting support, navigating the mental health care services. A lot of young people leave care at 18 and they're like, I am done. I've been here for too long. I don't want any more help from you, until they realize they do need help. And then some will say, oh gosh, I'm facing eviction. I don't have a home. The couch I was sleeping on is not meeting my needs. I need more help. So intensive support for navigating life. What are you going to do for your job? What are you going to do for your budget? What are you going to do for your education? And how are you going to manage through your mental health as now that you're 18 and all of your childhood trauma and all of your experiences, you're finally free to sort through it, and it starts to impact you in new ways as an adult. So this bill would allow DCF to enhance their services for youth who have left foster care perhaps abruptly, who've realized, oh gosh, maybe that was a mistake, but they don't want to go back and under the court's jurisdiction. It is, and it would be above and beyond what is currently provided for independent living services today. And I'm happy to answer further questions.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to be clear, there is accountability for these services when they receive that. They are accountable, and if they stop participating, then those services go away, and what kind of checks and balances are there?
Correct. That's a really important question. And it's important from a perspective of a provider or from DCF. The youth would have to be completing the case plan tasks, would have to be meeting with you, coming to appointments, and fulfilling sort of their end of the bargain. Just as if you're a parent and your child isn't following the rules, you don't just leave the door open forever. And so if the child is not where they say they're going to be, isn't returning phone calls for over 30 days, then DCF could say, you're no longer eligible for this program, you have to cooperate.
Are these in rules and regs in DCF, or where is this defined? Like,
That's the issue. The bill does not say specifically. It says reentry services, which because of the discussion, DCF has contemplated what that would be, but it would be something they would have to actually put in policy and procedure or rules and regs based on this discussion and the direction of what they know they intended originally when they were working on this behind the scenes.
just follow up. Go ahead. For the revisor, does this bill need to say that they can write rules and regs for that? Since it's new? You can contemplate that if you want and go into the next question.
Representative Wagoner.
Thank you. Rachel, maybe you could, looking at the math, they do have a side note. An average of $1,800 a month annualized is where they get the 6.14 billion, or million, excuse me, million. Sorry, not billion.
That seems a little high.
So I guess, and this is for 284 kids, is their estimate. And with the cost of the extra 8 case managers or whatever, 9 case managers and such, that's where they get the 7.4 million. So I'm figuring, if you're figuring $1,800 a month on a kid in foster care, I presume it's mostly housing support. Is that where a lot of the money would be, or is that, am I wrong in that?
Actually, Representative, I'd like to offer a different understanding of the fiscal note now. My understanding, again, this is a lot of understanding, is that the fiscal note was written with the intent of the bill from 2 years ago in mind, that they would be coming back to foster care. And so the 7.5 has to do with all of the bureaucracy that our current foster care system requires, and worker childs and parent childs, and you have to contract with your case management provider to provide those services. And so when you look at the fiscal note from the perspective of, it's not, there's a note in there that says this was contemplated from age 14 to 23. The amendment currently is actually limited only youth who are in care at the age of 16, and then for services only from 18 to 21. So you've automatically cut number of years down. Then you've cut the cost down because you're not placing them in a child placing agency. You're placing them directly, working with a more lower income kind of a landlord situation. So I think the $1,800 a month would probably be high, at least in most locations in the state. And so that's how I'm viewing that fiscal note, is I think it's overstated for what the current amendment says. And although I am no fiscal expert on DCF.
Representative Humphreys.
So this has brought up a few other questions. Yeah, specifically the reentry services. So the independent living program, it offers medical coverage, living subsidy, education, maybe tuition waiver, all of that. So would these reentry services be those reentry or would be those services that are now offered under the independent living program?
To my understanding, and of course, this is all subject to DCF sort of implementing what they've intended to implement or discussed implementing, this would be above and beyond those independent living service, those real baseline independent living services of,
They're
because
already
those are,
getting those things.
they're already getting those things at a level of the federal funding from Chafee supports some level of one-time rent assistance, or one time your vehicle breaks down and you can get a vehicle repair assistance. There's a very limited monthly subsidy for youth who receive independent living services through DCF today. But the more intensive case management services to navigate through your mental health care, to navigate through how do you find housing if you don't have someone to help you sign. Those things are not currently in our independent living services to my knowledge.
Okay, so if I may, just, so I'm looking at the independent living subsidy, and it says, you know, it's to assist with living expenses based upon need. Eligibility lasts until you turn 21, and it provides monthly assistance to help with living expenses. And then there's certain things. You have to be a Kansas resident. You know, you're in charge of maintenance and all that kind of thing wherever you're living. So that's already in there. That's already covered.
Mm-hmm.
So
there is a baseline of independent living services already
Yes.
provided by DCF today.
So this extra things are training or learning how to find a place to live, or, I mean, it's not actually cash assistance or.
Some of it is. I believe there is a difference between what our independent living services look like today and what it would look like if you were back in foster care in terms of the array of protections that would be for that young person. So in foster care, you have help with housing. Your housing is provided for you. But under this program, we would make sure you find housing, and then that would be supported. So it is above and beyond what is the current independent living practices today. And I think that the extent to that is what DCF would sort of say. They would really, their experts would have to get together to look and say, okay, what do we do today? What would be more enhanced to meet the intent of the legislation, the legislative bodies saying, yes, we want to make sure that youth who face homelessness after they age out of foster care have some more enhanced supports than we are providing them today.
So may I just so why, if we have the SOL bill and then we have the, you know, independent living, why do we need this? I mean, is there a big gap? I mean, is that what there is a gap, or?
There's a gap. So this would not be it would not be applicable to the SOL because let me think about that through. If you got a SOL permanent custodian, now I'm thinking on my feet.
You're good at that.
But it's late in the session and in the day. Yeah, technically speaking, I don't believe this bill is clear one way or another. This amendment is clear one way or another, whether a SOL. No, yeah, because that's wrong. That's not true. If you get a SOL permanent custodian, you've exited foster care, and so you've exited to permanency. So we're talking about a separate group of young people who have aged out of foster care without family, without a permanent support system, and we know that a heartbreaking number of those youth end up homeless. They end up couch surfing, they end up with dangerous people, or they end up back with their family members who aren't safe and who aren't necessarily providing them the care and direction that they need. So this bill is really intended, I think, so that when a youth is realizing, I'm going to be homeless, I can call DCF and have more than a little bit of help. I can really feel the help that I left foster care too soon to realize. That's my.
They wouldn't be getting it from the independent living.
You wouldn't be getting as much.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, Jesse has information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is in response to Representative Howerton's question about rules and regulations and rules and regulations authority. So in KSA 39708C, that's kind of the general duties of the secretary, and looking through current rules and regulations that the DCF secretary has adopted, they've cited this as an authority site. So subsection B of that statute says that the secretary shall have the power and duty to determine the general policies relating to all forms of social welfare which are administered or supervised by the secretary, and to adopt rules and regulations therefore. And so when it talks about for which are administered and supervised by the secretary, subsection R speaks to that the secretary shall develop a children and youth service program and shall administer or supervise program activities including the care and protection of children in need of care. So my interpretation is that section would give the secretary powers to adopt rules and regulations as this relates to the child in need of care program.
Andrea, if we were to pass this out today, is there a way that we could get an amended fiscal note? Okay. Okay, thank you. Representative Howerton.
Okay, I'm looking at the website on DCF and it says age 14. So would this bill change it to 16 or is that something different too?
Yeah, Rachel,
Sorry. I'm reading.
No, thanks. The benefits that young people who are in foster care at age 14 or 16 or 18 or 21 or 26 are all different based on whether they're a state benefit, a state tuition law, a federal benefit, the different buckets of the federal benefit. And so I can't answer exactly. What I can say is that this bill is not going to prohibit DCF from implementing any of the other programs that it currently offers. It will simply provide an enhancement for the young adult who comes back and says, I am not making it on my own and I need help. I wish I could come back to care.
okay, we have now discussed what the amendment is, and I realize I have not moved my amendment. So I move to amend House Bill 2189, second by Representative Ousley. Now, is there discussion? We know what it is. Do you have any discussion about the amending? Yeah. Okay. Seeing none, I close on my motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Okay. The amendment passed. Now, does anyone else have an amendment? Okay. I'll open up any, or entertain a motion to decide what we wish to do with the bill. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that we pass out favorably House Bill 2189 as amended.
Okay. Motion by Representative Johnson to pass out favorably as amended, second by Representative Ousley. Further discussion. Representative Johnson.
I just took a little bit of time and went back. This bill did come to us from Representative Thomas, and he was also presenting it from the former mayor of his city of Spring Hill, who was a family attorney, and some of those issues that were presented in his testimony. We've heard from Rachel Marsh and others who were proponents, the Department of Family or Children and Family Services. And one of the things we heard early on was the need for the amendment that we now see on the bill. And it clearly serves as a need, and I think it is a bipartisan issue. So I just present those facts, and I think that with an amended expense before we go to the floor for my bill brief, I think we'd be in very good shape with this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Wagner.
I'm sorry, but I guess my question is on this. What would the committee think? I mean, this reminds me, again, it has some parallels to the Soul family deal that we passed. And when we passed that, we had like a 5-year sunset into it, just to see for sure what this really does. I mean, this is kind of entering a new area into providing, multiple levels of support for kids who are past the age of 18. And I don't know. I mean, I would offer this conceptual amendment, but I don't want to if people think that's like a bad idea.
Well, I actually think that's a great idea. Would anybody like to second that?
Offer it as a conceptual amendment.
Yeah. So conceptual amendment by Representative Wagner and a second by Representative Pickard. Is that okay, Jesse? Can you handle it? Any discussion on that? Representative Johnson.
I believe I would accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion.
Any further discussion? 5-year. Okay. All right, we will vote on the amendment to, you want to close on your amendment?
Close.
Okay. All in favor of amending to establish a pilot for 5 years? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, that amendment passes, and then now Jesse has.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Since this bill was introduced in 2023, both sections of law have been amended since then, and so you don't see the most recent version of KSA 38-2202 and 2203. So I'm just asking for the committee to give me the leeway to update those sections, and that also includes the reconciliation of 38-2202 definitions from House Bill 2024 and 2021.
We need a motion for that. Okay. Representative Johnson.
So moved.
Second by Representative Owsley. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay. You have the leeway. Any further discussion on the bill? Okay. Representative Johnson, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the additional amendments and leeway, I would move and close on my motion.
Okay. All in favor of passing out favorably, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay. The bill passed. Representative Thomas will be so excited. Thank you, everybody. And, this is our last meeting. I want to thank this committee. I've really appreciated everybody. And everybody brings so many different perspectives. This has been a really nice committee to work with. And I appreciate all of your input and diligence in studying the bills and always being prepared. So thank you all. And we're adjourned. And I'd like to thank our staff, Jesse, Natalie, and Judy. Yeah.